Hey, I am so excited that you're here with me today, Jeremy.
I've been looking forward to this for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
We were just talking about how you flew in on your private jet, being a director, filmmaker, producer. You guys pull that kind of power, right?
Yeah. I called my people up
Yeah.
about 3 weeks ago. And I was like, yo, I need a direct flight to Minneapolis to see Chef.
From
Atlanta, from Atlanta. And they hooked me up, dude. I was able to hop on a Spirit flight today and my private jet and come see you, dude.
Yeah. It's funny because you're telling me, because it's really amazing that you're literally here for the day. So you got here at 9 this morning?
I left Atlanta at 7 a.m. and I landed here in Minneapolis at 9.
Yeah, and then you'll be back out.
And then I'm leaving MSP tonight at 7 p.m.
Yeah, so you're literally here for 12 hours. And that means so much because it was kind of funny because I heard you were coming and then we were, kind of talking. And then I kind of set up oh yeah, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? Tomorrow morning, where do you want to, and you're like, oh dude, I leave in a few hours after. And so you literally just came in today just for this. So it means so much to me, bro.
I wouldn't miss it. Yeah.
So, hey man, let's just get going on this. You know what Hmonglish is about. You listen to Hmonglish, I hope. No, I'm just kidding.
I do.
And one of the things that I really love is just finding Hmong people doing different things in different aspects of life and also things that they're interested in. I think that one of the things I've really learned is that there's just this younger generation of kids that are kind of watching us, and it's not a way of me feeling like, oh, I owe it to them, but it is a way of, there's kind of that Hmong inside of it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying when I'm saying that, where it's like, our fathers and our parents and our grandparents have built so much for us that it's naturally in us to make sure that whatever we do, we build something for them, for the next generation to come through, right?
Right. Yeah, dude. Growing up, and even up till today, there are people and societal standards that, will let you know if you're being Hmong enough or not Hmong enough, right? And so, coming up as a filmmaker and especially becoming a filmmaker I graduated film school at almost 30 years old. And so the thing is, filmmaking has never really...
Dude, you over 30 right now?
I'm 35.
Nah.
Yeah.
Dude, I totally thought you were 28.
Nah, I look younger than I am, but I'm,
dude, it's
I'm
that
35.
Hmong gene, dude.
It is, dude.
Yeah.
Asian don't raisin, you know what I'm saying? And so,
I'm really 85. I feel 85.
Yeah. And so, here's the thing is, something I used to be really embarrassed about and ashamed about is I actually failed out of college 3 times before I turned 20 years old. And as a business major. And when I failed out that 3rd time, in that short amount of time, I was actually asked to leave for 2 years, right? On an academic
probation
suspension. Yeah. And so I then spent 20 through 25 in Athens, Georgia, just kind of goofing off, working a bunch of different random jobs. I managed a couple dry cleaning places. I was the assistant manager in a debt collection agency, just these very odd jobs that I had no passion doing. And at 25 years old, when all of my friends were getting into grad programs and moving to New York and LA, I was still just kind of goofing off in Athens just by myself. And so one of the most important things my mom ever told me growing up, and she told us often, is as long as you are a student or have a full-time job, you are always welcome to live in my home for free. And the thing is, I had wasted so much of my parents' money during those attempts at school. I was really ashamed of even talking about money with them, right? But when I felt ready to go back to college, I knew that the most successful chance I would have with it is if I didn't have to worry about rent. And so at 25, with my tail between my legs, I asked my mom if I could move home, which they very gracefully allowed me to. And I was able to start college again immediately. Took me about 2.5 years to finish my core classes. And then at 27, I had to make the decision of what major did I want to pick. And it wasn't going to be business again. That's how I failed out those 3 times. And so I knew that I needed and wanted to study something at least a little bit fun. And I knew that filmmaking was about to make a huge boom in Georgia. And so I decided to join this brand new film program. And the rest is history, man.
So you were talking about, you were just saying that filmmaking was going to make a boom in Georgia. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. And so Atlanta and the state of Georgia over the past however many years has really become the new Hollywood of the South, as some people call it. We have such diversity in our state when it comes to landscape and topography. We've got the Atlantic Ocean there, and we've got great mountains and everything in between. And also for like shows like The Walking Dead, we have a lot of really old stuff in the country already, right? And so
you're talking about scenes, right? Like
scenes, yes.
Yeah, like background scenes,
background
and stuff like that.
scenes, and dilapidated areas, things like that. And so around 2013, 2014, a lot of businesses and universities caught wind of it, right? And some universities started up some brand new bachelor programs in film production. And so, I was probably in the 4th or 5th ever graduating class in my film program.
Wow.
And I became one of the very first to go work in the industry. And so, yeah, I've been professionally filmmaking since October of 2017. So it's been a while now.
Yeah. So why film? Like, was it, because you're like, I'm looking at the landscape, I'm trying to figure this out, or was there like a passion already there for film and media?
I think there was more of a passion in storytelling than there was in specifically film and media. Not to go too deep into Hmong history and what have you, but
let's do it.
I'm fascinated. One of the things I'm most fascinated about our Hmong culture is the history of our written language, and, not our current written language was developed in the 1950s, and so for such a long time, our traditions, our recipes, our stories, our everything was shared either orally or through things like story clots or things like that. And so I truly believe that storytelling is baked into our Hmong DNA. And I feel the most Hmong when I'm filmmaking, specifically when I'm screenwriting. And it has been an amazing way for me personally to explore my Asianness, to explore my Hmongness. And the success of the movie, you're a great example. The success of the movie has really allowed me to connect with and befriend Asian American chefs, creatives, musicians from all around the world, actually. And so this little movie, Wokman, just continues to bless me in so many different ways. And dude, I feel like we're storytellers at heart, and we have just found our respective mediums in which, to get us started and off the ground.
Yeah, even if you think about, like, if you grew up as a Hmong kid, you totally know about like Daneng, and all these stories that our grandparents, our parents told us, but there was always like a valuable lesson inside of it. And it's almost this like very like sci-fi mystical kind of stories, right? Like there's always a tiger, there's a dragon, there's a beautiful girl, and something happens in between there. And then it's kind of like, it's the closest to what we have as here in America is like these like Paul Bunyan, Blue Ox, Babe the Blue Ox, and John Henry, like these American classic literature stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's almost like mythical creatures.
Right.
In the Hmong world, we have so many of that. But all of it is just verbally.
Right.
So you tell your kids, and your kids will tell that story to your kids, and they'll tell you that story to your kid. But the game changer was when we could write it down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were playing generations long games of telephone, and like, for example, let's take like recipes, for example, right? So you have recipes being shared orally, but then you have a more traditionally known situation of, like, just for an example, like a mother-in-law sharing a recipe with a daughter-in-law, but intentionally omitting an ingredient or changing the amount of ingredient, right? Well, when things like that happen generation after generation, we start to lose entire recipes, and we start to, and entire stories and things are altered. And so about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I bought my mom a Hmong cookbook, and I didn't think anything of it. It was longer than that. It was maybe a decade or so ago now. And she called me when I had it shipped straight to her house. And she called me explaining to me that, like, oftentimes when you're getting recipes from family members, like I said earlier, it's not going to taste the same. It's not going to be the same. And she was like, this is the first time I have seen a professionally collected group of recipes that had corresponding pictures with professional copy written on them. And that's really what really sparked my interest in the Hmong written language and the passing of stories and how we do so. And so, yeah, I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and I also think too, especially within the whole recipe idea, it's like, to be completely honest, like growing up, it wasn't that my mom and dad sat me down and said, hey, this is how many cups, this is whatever. A lot of times they didn't say anything, you just watched. And you had to decipher in your head. So like for me, a lot of the food that we first started doing, Hmong food, it was like from memory.
Right.
You know, and then I'm like, hey, mom, when you put this in, what did you do with this? And she's like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that what's really incredible about the language is the communication aspect of it. You know, anybody can watch anybody can write things down, but being able to communicate. And that's why we always say it's not about recipes, it's about relationships. Right. And that's very important, a big part of the whole, you know, the whole quote unquote recipe line, because I think that there's a disconnect between recipes and the relationship, where it's like, when you're like, just give me the recipe. Just give me the recipe. Because what they're saying is, I don't really care about the story behind it. I don't really even care about the people behind it. I just wanted the recipe because I want to do it. Then I can show it to others. Right. And there's a selfishness in it sometimes. So that's why I'm very careful of like, do I just want the recipe and I don't really care about the person? Right. Because if you take on the recipe, you have to take on that person too. Right. That relationship.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would hope, or you would want to maybe make that recipe alongside that person, you know, but no, we're at a point now, our current generation among people, to where we have to consider and actually execute on doing some restoration and doing some logging and doing some and writing some stuff down, because some of our most deepest conversations you and I have had are talking about our parents' legacy and their stories and how and our efforts in preserving them. And it's easier and when you have friends and colleagues who are genuinely wanting to do it alongside you, and so
it's the alignment.
It is
being aligned in it together. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Because we're not the youngest men antianymore. You know what I'm saying? And
it's some would consider. But yeah.
And so as I
identify as a boomer, so I can yell at young kids.
Exactly. Because dude, here's the thing: you're a storyteller too. It's just that you're a cook and a storyteller, and I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller. And it's been great getting to know you and realizing that you realize how important it is that we get to work, and we're responsible to a certain degree of helping our culture keep going. So
you go from film school, graduate, and you start working in production. What's your first job?
My very first job was actually, I started my career off in Athens, Georgia, where the University of Georgia is. And so I started my career off as what's called a first assistant director. And so for anyone who's...
There's all these titles, dude.
There are a lot of titles.
In productions that I work in, there's all these titles. I'm like, I don't know what you do.
Yeah. The thing is, in a similar realm, there's so many similarities to a film set and a kitchen, bro. Yeah. And just, that's what
we can compare it if you want.
Yeah. But in terms of working with the brigade and a team and all of these things, but a first assistant director, where the film director is often mistaken as the person running the film set. It's actually the assistant director. And where the director is in charge of everything creative and fun, the assistant director is in charge of all the not fun stuff. Primarily our main job is safety. And then after that, it's scheduling and logistics and things like that. And so I I first AD'd several music videos in Athens to start off my career. I was very lucky to actually get hired by them 3 months before I graduated college. So I started freelancing while still in film school. And I pretty much stayed in Athens working on music videos for about 6 to 8 months before I felt ready on making the big jump to Atlanta. And so when I moved to Atlanta, I started doing a lot of grip and electric work.
What's that?
It's set lighting technicians, right? It's providing the lights and shaping the lights and all of those good things. And that's what I was making most of my money doing for a while. And
yeah, bless those guys.
yes,
You guys are crazy. It's
the lighting teams are they're unsung heroes for sure. And
well, kind of take a pause there. I've been on enough production where it's like, you're like, really? Do you need to really do that? Because it's super meticulous.
Yeah.
It's like, do you really need to do that? Even like, shout out to Reed, who does, our lighting here, like this, we don't normally look like this,
right.
but like, just like the moment like that, that big, nice, soft light hits, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's literally the difference of a quarter inch, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I've been on production where it's like, you race the sun.
Yes.
It's like go, or like you can't start for a certain time because the sun's at a certain time,
right.
And then you have the soft light guy who's sometimes a PA, and he becomes the stand, he or she becomes the stand, and they just have to hold there, and you're seeing them trembling, sweating, and you got some director who goes, "Where's my light?"
Yes, absolutely, because with all of I know you film a lot outdoors, and so chasing the sun, it's its own different beast, and.
That's why a lot of people like to film in studios because you can control the weather.
Yes.
You can make it look like any kind of weather in studio. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I did a lot. I started my career off in non-creative roles in filmmaking. And in spring of 2021, mind you, this is still a roaring pandemic at that point. So there's this rise in anti-Asian hate and violence that sprung up alongside the growth of COVID-19. And so one of the things that a mentor told me was one of the most immediate and effective ways to combat this is to start sharing our families and sharing our stories. And we can share a picture of the fam and write a little sentence. Yeah, we can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I encourage people to do that. But it was the first time in my life, where it was like, I need to acknowledge the fact that I am a good filmmaker. And I need to and should contribute to this fight more than how I'm doing now. So I'm broke and it's a pandemic. We can't go march all the time and what have you. And so I had been cooking Wokman in my brain for couple years at that point. And then in February 2021, after really hearing my mentor's words, I made the decision to start writing it. And so I spent the month of February and February writing it. And we submitted to there's awesome organization in Atlanta called Film Impact Georgia. Okay. And essentially twice a year, they have a filmmaking competition where if you win, you get $5,000 cash and the mentorship of an industry professional. And I used that competition as just the box that I needed with a due date and just
the parameters.
Exactly. Or I wasn't going to do it probably. And
because I know the writing, it's like, I'll get to it.
Exactly.
But
7 years later, I still haven't gotten it to it, And so I submit to the grant. We have a completed script. We have what's called a lookbook or a pitch deck. And so we got what we need to film. And honestly, I'd forgotten about the grant. And then a month later, we get an email and they said we were top 10 finalists. Wow. And at that point, if I'm not mistaken, it's still the highest number of submissions they ever had. Yeah. And so we were a top 10 finalist. And I was like, well, obviously the road's stopping here. Like we ain't getting any further than this. But
it's like it's nice. You pat.
Yeah, it was great. Nice. Like they put like a little logo next to my headshot, and Wokman is a top 10. Blah blah blah. We had to answer some more essay questions and stuff, and I'm like, this is cool. Super honored for this. And then, bro, 2 weeks later, what they do is they post the third place winner, and then an hour later they post the second. And then,
build the anticipation.
exactly.
These drama people, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And so there was one other script that I knew could beat me.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were listed as the second place winner,
Yeah.
I knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
And started driving home from work, and my producer, my best friend, she called me, kind of crying, and was like, "We won."
Dude.
And $5,000 cash and the mentorship of a filmmaking professional. And I quit my job the next week, and I went and quietly worked non-filmmaking jobs for the next 2 or 3 years while I started making Wokman.
Okay.
And that is about the time when I started meeting a lot of new folks like yourself, was that during that period of time. And so we started getting things ready. We were preparing for a $20,000 crowdfunding campaign, right? And fast forward a little bit, we went from having a script and a dream to a fully funded short film.
Yeah.
And so we filmed the short film in October of 2023. And excuse me, my bad, 2022. And we spent the next year editing it. And so we finished the movie in September, and we are about to start on our film festival run. And I feel comfortable sharing this because it's not going to be released in time. But a couple of days ago, we learned we made it into the Atlanta Film Festival.
That's huge down there.
It's huge, man. The Atlanta Film Festival is an Academy Award qualifying film festival. And it was an 8-year goal of mine to make it in there. And so we can't share publicly until next week, till I have the press release, but it's kind of starting to happen.
I think most people, because of TikTok, YouTube, I'm going to age myself a little bit, but Vine, all that stuff, they think that, oh, there comes an idea, somebody writes a script, it happens, and then in a few months, boom, this is happening. I think that that's like a Hollywood dream, right? Kind of the Good Will Hunting thing, right? Like everyone's just like, look, these 2 kids decided to do this from Boston, and wow, like Good Will Hunting, and they win, an Academy Award for this, and blah, 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 And I think everybody sees that, and that's all they see.
Yeah.
For you, this thing was like 8 years in the making.
Yeah.
And for you, it was once your script, when you guys won, with your script, then it was like, yep, I'm going to go work for another 2 to 3 years, non-filmmaking, where, I'm making this up, but it's like just, putting boxes here and doing, what I'm saying?
Essentially,
like, yeah. While when I'm done with my 9 to 5, which that's, paying my bills, then the next thing you do is when we get back from that, we're going to go work on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think people understand that.
Social media it's a highlight reel, right?
Yep.
Just like they don't see the struggles that you have put into your restaurants and everything. Yeah, we don't really share the harder, not so sexy parts of filmmaking. To leave filmmaking for 3 years after I had already built a name and a reputation for myself, and during those 3 years, continuing to watch my colleagues and my rivals, you know what I'm saying? Watching everybody keep going. And it's like, I really had to learn to like put my blinders on, and you can't compare what we're doing to other people. We've never known, nothing like this has ever been done before, And so here's the thing too, is like, there's no guarantee that Wokman would have taken off. And I want to be a writer and a director so badly that, dude, it was a risk I was willing to take. And so, yeah, dude, the money we had to spend, because here's the thing, the budget to make the movie and all that, I am so lucky to honestly say that I didn't spend $1 on that. That is the dream, dude.
Yeah.
That is truly the dream.
Like you didn't have to fork out your own money.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I did fork out my own money when it came to more smaller things like, coffees and dinners and things like that. And when you do that
adds up
2 or 3 times a month for like 2 or 3 years, it adds up.
Yeah.
But then you turn around and look back at all of the talent you're able to recruit and the equipment they brought and everything. And it was a true community effort to make the movie. One of the things I'm most proud about with Wokman is, well, I have to talk about something not so fun to talk about that. So like making Wokman, there have been more than one milestone that should have been celebratory. And they were celebratory for a short amount of time before we were reminded that things aren't that much better. The first example being when we submitted Wokman to Film Impact Georgia. Dude, that was huge. Completed script, completed lookbook, completed budget, and it was off to the races. Excuse me. Well, less than 48 hours later were the Atlanta spa killings of all of those Asian women, right? And 30 miles up the road from where my mom lives, you know what I'm saying? And like you see all those women on screen and it's like, I don't know, man. But after that, my number one goal in life, bro, we're going to get as many Asian women on Wokman as possible. I think after cast and crew combined, I think we had 16 Asian women on our team. And there's so many hurtful moments that came along with it, you know? And you've seen Wokman. It's just a single day in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I needed to have that simple premise so that people would be willing to walk into my movie. They don't even realize they've started to engage in a conversation about race and refugees and immigrants with me until the movie's done. That's what this whole thing is. I'm trying to trick people into having a somewhat calm conversation with me, considering like, dude, I'm the son of refugees, you know what I'm saying? And like, anytime immigrants and refugees are brought up, it's already a heated conversation. And, you know, we watch our parents getting older, bro. And like my old man just turned 63, you know, and he's a grandparent now. And I think we've talked about this briefly before, bro. It's like when our parents became grandparents, like there's like this shift, you know what I'm saying? And like there's a different feel at home now. And to see my parents, but specifically my old man, like become softer with his grandparents or with his grandbabies. And storytelling goes beyond entertainment. And I'm truly starting to realize that now. I just thought it was a fun way to make money until very recently. And I'm starting to realize that there's truly power in storytelling and in filmmaking. Storytelling has the power to bridge communities and to heal. And it gives you the confidence to explore things and explore things about you that otherwise would shut you down or scare someone off from having the conversation. And so, you know, I don't, where I'm from in Atlanta, where there's a reason why I love coming to see y'all up here so much, you know what I'm saying? Like, I come up here and I literally feel like my batteries get charged. And I have a lot of Asian friends in Atlanta, don't get me wrong, but like most of them are Korean, Chinese, like East Asian. And, you know, there are not a lot of Hmong filmmakers there. And so when I come up here and I see all of you doing these awesome things, it really motivates me, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really, sometimes I take for granted that I live in an area where, you know, it's one of the It is the highest dense Hmong populated, areas in the country. About 78,000 in the metro, and also too kind of been known as this area is like where like Hmong culture develops from. And so I kind of forget that sometimes because you're so much into the work you're doing and stuff like that, and so it's really great to be reminded of that. The other thing is everything you're saying resonates with me because we've talked many times, long hours, gone out to eat, talked about all this stuff before. So it definitely resonates inside of me. And I think that the process of getting a film made is kind of like going from, you were saying there's a lot of parallels, and I'm finding with a lot of the people we're interviewing, there's a lot of parallels in what they're doing. And I think if there's a theme, I think so far with all the people we've been interviewing is this idea of like starting from scratch, starting from scratch. Like, what does it look like? Like those hard, not sexy moments where nobody hears about. It's the non-Instagram / social media moments, right? Where nobody, you actually kind of, it's someone, and you don't want people to see, I think that like sometimes people, you're right, people get this little glimpse and highlight, like, dude, you got this thing, you're doing this thing, this looks great. And like, my joke's always, the light does 90% of the work. That's what we always joke. When you're taking these, food pictures and whatever. But I think that one of the things that I want to kind of dig into is, so we know where you come from. We know, where you're going. We know the process you're going through. Talk to us about Wokman. Like, what is Wokman? If you can, there's part of me that goes, spoiler alert. No, but what is Wokman? Like, what's the premise behind it? Why'd you choose the subject you chose?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about Wokman. And so, simply put, Wokman is a short film. It is 16 minutes and 25 seconds long, and it is essentially the story of a day in the life of an immigrant Chinese family that runs their own Chinese takeout spot in 1998. And
why 98?
So they're the 10-year-old boy who is kind of the main character in the movie, who had recently just been forced by his parents to start working the cash register and answering the phones. I was also 10 years old in 1998. And so I was really going to tap into that part of me and really wanted to use that as a driving factor creatively in the movie. And so I also wanted, another reason why it's 98 is because Wokman is a play on word of the Sony Walkman. And so
some of those kids don't know what that is.
They don't know what that is at all.
Cassette tape. Before the Discman, there was the Walkman. Before MP3 players. Before that.
Exactly. And so I also, another thing that I really set out to do before we started filming or even started writing is I am not going to be blatantly sharing too much information. Like I am going to give you information, but you need to truly see what's going on. And so some of the hints we give for the time are a Game Boy Pocket. So I, in real life, had a red Game Boy Pocket with Pokemon Blue. And so we had the exact same combination in the movie.
Where'd you find all this stuff?
eBay. eBay, I
can see your set producer guy. He's just like, okay, I guess we're going.
Exactly. And we bought the old Power Rangers toys where the heads flip into the chest.
The mask comes off?
We got those too, man. That's all at the house. I like to say I just did the whole movie so I could buy a bunch of toys.
That you never got.
Exactly, dude.
It's kind of like when I go on, when I go to gas stations. We were never allowed to get anything in gas station. But now, no matter if I'm hungry or not, at a gas station, I'll just buy like a hot dog or a burger. And I'm like, this makes up for all those years.
Absolutely. I do that in several areas of my life. But yeah, and so that was also just a period of my life. It was right before 2000. It was just like this. I just remember it being this very exciting time. But yeah, and so I wanted to highlight the late 90s in there. And so the reason why, and I'm not going to say the flack, but like some of the feedback I've gotten, especially since the early stages of the movie, are, well, why'd you pick a Chinese family?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
and not a Hmong.
I'll be
flavor.
honest, right away when when you sent me the premise of the movie, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why,
Yeah.
where I kind of settled on it. But go ahead, you explain. You do your
So
thing.
the medium of the short film is very important for filmmakers to kind of show the world what you can do with a limited budget and with limited resources, and every second matters, right? And so even though we've had great advances with getting the Hmong people out in the spotlight, Suni Lee and all of these things that have come up as of late, there still comes a little bit of explanation that has to come along when the word Hmong is used, right? And so the thing is, I did not want to spend 2 or 3 minutes explaining who Hmong people were for multiple reasons. First off, we deserve more than that.
Yep.
And secondly, I need people to be in the story mindset the millisecond the movie starts. And so I had to think to myself, like, what ethnicity could I potentially use? What kind of world could I build so that the second the viewer starts the movie, it's like, oh, dude, yeah, I know exactly where I am. I know how it smells like, and I know these people. It doesn't matter where you live, your skin color, how much money you make. Everyone's got a favorite Chinese spot. Everybody. And so I figured if I could take a lot of my own anecdotes and our family's anecdotes and hide them and protect them behind the facade of an immigrant Chinese family's story, I think it would be more digestible. It would be a little bit more intriguing to the broader audiences. And the thing is too, like, I knew that if that went well, my opportunities to share about Hmong people would follow. Look at where I am now. You know what I'm saying? And so I really relied on the Chinese's history and presence in this country, their very long and tumultuous history in this country, to help share our story. And so do I have Hmong stories and movies and projects? Absolutely. And I hope one day I get to make them. I hope I get to make them with you, you know what I'm saying? But I think the gamble worked for me for Wokman, picking an immigrant Chinese family. Yeah.
When you sent me the sample to watch, the first thing I thought about was, well, we're not a Hmong family. And then I thought to myself, no, this makes sense. Late 90s, you can go to Penang anywhere, there's a Chinese restaurant there. And when I say Chinese restaurant, I'm talking like Chinese American restaurant, And so, I mean, that's a great representation of this is the majority. The stories and the nuances in those Chinese family, in those restaurants are very parallel to ours. And it's okay. And then that's what, that was the one thing that it helped settle me. I'm like, this makes complete sense. Was there Hmong families that, ran a Chinese restaurant? Because a lot of Hmong families, when they started cooking, it was Chinese restaurants. Yeah, probably there was. But was there a lot? Probably not. In the late 90s. No, a lot of the big boom of a lot of the Hmong families that ended up here was, early 90s. So they're still developing, but I think that you just said, hey, what is going on right at this time? And being able, man, like when I tell people, like when I talk about our story and where my parents came from and what my dad did in the war and all that stuff, that's our family story. It parallels to some of the Hmong stories, but it's not exactly every single Hmong family story. Right. And it's okay. But there's some nuances in there that we connect together. That's why as Hmong people, you can go to Bozeman, Montana, meet another Hmong family there, and right away we get it because we have a shared history. Right?
Yeah.
We have a shared history. But the little nuances of those histories, are they exactly the same? No. And they don't have to be. And that's what the diversity aspect of it is.
Right.
But to be able to take something that says, hey, let's look at some of the main points here and make the main point the main point. Like you did that with Wokman. And so that's why when I watched it, I was like, I get this. I get the struggle. It doesn't even have to be, if you really think about it, it doesn't even have to be the restaurant where you use the restaurant as kind of like your canvas, right? It could just be a dad working, I don't know, as a janitor at a big building. It could be the dad and the mom, working at, in some field somewhere, being harvesters and stuff. It could be any of that,
Yeah.
But you chose the restaurant. Well, so that's my thing. Why restaurants?
So that's great because there's a lot of intentionality about that side of the story. During a lot of these protests, when the anti-Asian hate stuff started coming about, you started hearing this sentence, love our people like you love our food, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I believe that that food and eating with someone, dude, that is such an intimate and immediate and effective way of experiencing another culture. And it's also just in terms of relationships, to sit down with someone and to talk for an hour, to break rice together, that's incredibly special to me as well. And so the thing is, of all of the different Asian peoples, kind of a common denominator we have breaking into Western culture was our food. And like I said earlier, a lot of people have a favorite Chinese spot. Yeah. Whatever they believe in other than
Shout out to Tammy Wong. Rainbow Chinese food, kind of down the street. Yeah.
I knew that because here's the thing. There were going to be non-Asian people who were going to have a different perspective on this and different things to look out for. And so it was I'm trying to attract the Asian audience in with these nuances and these little things, but then I'm going to have to invite other people in with familiarity and with interest. And it was very interesting to have different mindsets, attracting different audiences into the movie. And so food is already a welcoming thing in and of itself. And I knew that making sure that food was the main center point of the story, that is what people were gonna come in and watch the movie.
Talk to me about the casting process.
Yeah, for sure. So Wokman, we have a banger cast, man. We got some real heavy hitters.
You guys have some young actors too.
We do.
Actors and actresses,
We do. And so the Wokman, Kurt Yu, he is hands down one of our most respected and talented actors in Atlanta, Asian American or otherwise. If you pay, I love it when folks start seeing Kurt and other things and they text me pictures of him I found the Wokman and
he's the dad character.
He's a dad character. And so what's great about Kurt is
you're just waiting for him to be in one of the Marvel movies and you're like, what's up?
He's in the Marvel universe.
Oh, is he?
He's in Black Widow. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he's
or not Black Widow. No, I have. Yeah, now I'm gonna go look for him.
Yeah, he has a speaking role in Black Widow.
Oh, okay, now I'm gonna go look for him.
Yeah, and technically, and I'm pleased
because that was filmed in Atlanta.
Or part of it? Some was in Atlanta, a lot was in London. He did most of his in London.
Okay.
And so I'm not too well versed on all of the comic stuff, but I know there have been multiple Marvel verses, right? With Kurt is the only actor that has appeared in 3 different Marvel universes.
Dude, I'm gonna go look for him now.
Yeah, so check him out. And so Kurt was born and raised in Beijing.
Okay.
And his dad, excuse me, Kurt, if I forget some of these details, but his dad was in academics and came from China to America to work on his academics. Kurt and his mom followed his dad when he was a little baby, has been here since. He went to college at Oberlin and lived in Ohio. I think he was in IT or something. And then I think he started taking an acting class and he started doing some commercial acting in Ohio to the point where he was working so much where he was I need to consider if this should be a full-time
commercials
thing.
Where it's at.
Exactly.
You know
bro.
what I'm saying. Those residuals.
I want to direct commercials.
Yeah, dude,
that's I'm trying to get at that.
Dude, Geico, you hear me?
Yeah, we're available.
Yeah, dude. Some of those commercials, that's where it's at. My buddy's an actor and he's just bro.
Absolutely.
It's just oh, Christmas.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, like Float, there's some insurance characters from those commercials that have made entire careers from it. But yeah, and so Kurt, he made the decision to move to Atlanta, and right when he moved is when I started working in film productions outside of school and started meeting the community. And so it was just another film set where there were two people of color on the set, and it was me and Kurt. And
you're like, "What's up, dude?"
Yeah, it's like, "Hey, what's up, fellow Asian guy?" And I just remember Kurt being incredibly funny, and to the point where he was making crew laugh while recording, you know. And so it's like, it's really going down at that point. And so when we said bye, I was just like, "Hey, man, like, I'm about to graduate college in a year, and I just wanted to say what's up, and like hopefully our paths cross again." And that was that. That was January 2016.
Yeah.
And so we both go do our thing, and I'm keeping an eye on Kurt from afar. And this Joker is just like, he's starting to land some roles, you know, and like starting to get speaking roles and everything. And so when I was preparing to write Wokman, I told myself, if I can figure out, like, if Kurt can speak Mandarin, I'm offering no audition. And so I didn't have the guts to go to him until we won the grant.
Okay.
So I had $5,000 and some support and some buzz going around. And I DM'd Kurt, and I was like, "Hey, bro, just want to let you know, I went on your IMDb, and when I learned that you spoke Mandarin, you have been my mental placeholder for this role." And he knew we had won. And so I was like, "I'm inviting you to read this. And if you like it, I'm offering to you right now." And he was like, "All right, let me get back to you." And like 36 hours later, he texted me back, and he was like, "Let's do it." And once I had the Walkman in, you know, we had a lot more confidence, like, going into the rest of it. We searched coast to coast for everybody, man.
That's cool.
And, you know, I was a little worried about, because originally all 4 characters are going to speak mainly Mandarin. And it took me some consultations and some talks with mentors and consultants of like, now think about how you spoke in your family. And I'm like, you're right. Like, we spoke English and mom and dad spoke Hmong. And I'm like, and that happens in a lot of families. And so we made some shifts. And once we made it to where the kids were speaking mainly English, was like, boom, the casting was off, and it was off to the races. And we found, luckily, Georgia-based super talent. And that's the thing. Every cast and crew member in Wokman is from Georgia.
That's amazing.
And
it's hard to do sometimes.
Hard to do.
You know?
Hard to do.
I'll be very honest, sometimes you compromise that talent for, you know, just less experience, you know, for that, like, hey, we want to keep to this ideology or to this. And then, you know, and some people that are coming from out of state are more expensive because you got to, you know, put them up. Yeah.
So you'll like this. My director of photography, cinematographer, his name's Lael K-Mac, and Lael is a white-haired 60-something-year-old white man, right? And he's also the dad of my best friend and my producer, Sophia. And the thing about Lael is, years before Wokman, Lael was like the only mentor I had as a filmmaker, man. And like, Lael would occasionally call me. He would occasionally invite me to dinner, just making sure that I was okay as a young freelance filmmaker. And yeah, dude, he was just always such a constant source of support and a fatherly figure to me. And so when we won the grant and we were getting ready to crew it up, Lael came to me and he was like, I totally understand if you want to go with an Asian American director of photography, but he was like, I just want you to know that, like, I love you, I love your script, and I believe in you, man. And, you know, there's also that factor of him working alongside his daughter as well. And when I was desperate for support and love and attention, because no one teaches you how to be a freelancer.
No.
And Lael was always there. And now Lael wanted to be my director of photography, and he wanted to bring his gear, and he wanted to give me everything he had. And I was like, yeah, let's do it, dude. And so all of a sudden, it's me, a 32-year-old Asian kid, and like a 61-year-old white guy, and we became the ultimate creative like combo.
Tell people who don't understand what a DP or director of photography is. Like, tell them, like, what's the role of that?
Absolutely. So a director of photography, or sometimes called a cinematographer, they are in charge of visually how your movie or commercial or what have you is going to look. They need to understand the director's visions and intentions to the
hip to hip with that director,
highest degree possible. A lot of them, I've heard of folks like of DPs and directors like staying with each other and for periods of time and all of that. And so it's my job to tell the director of photography how I think it should look, how I see it looking, and they'll come back to me with like, well, with what we have and what we're gonna have, this is what's realistic and blah blah blah. And so mind you, I had never worked with a director of photography before at that point. And so, you know, man, like mentorship is like really important to me. And like I've had amazing mentors in my life, and I continue to have amazing mentors. And one of the most common things that my mentors tell me when I have asked them just certain questions about whatever is like, you need to make sure that when you get to the point, you need to pay back that mentoring. Like, you cannot forget about the people who come up after you. And that has really motivated me to become a mentor myself, you know, and like working with up and coming filmmakers from around the country. And just a lot of times you just listen to them, to be honest. That's really what people need a lot of, is just someone to kind of hang out with them and listen. And so, and so it was my job immediately to explain to Lael, a white person, like not coming from an Asian family, explaining to him a lot of, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, and this is kind of, and so it was great because for one of the first times ever as a filmmaker, like, he was holding my hand, you know what I'm saying? And like, he was like pushing me into the deep end, or like holding me back. Whereas, you know, oftentimes I'm the one in that role. And it really allowed me to be a director for the first time and not have to worry about craft services and worrying about all of that stuff. So I feel like I got to be a director for the first time ever.
And it, you know, in everything you say, there's so much parallel in the you know, in the restaurant world. You know, like Timmy and Trevor are my right and left hand. You know, and it's, you know, every morning on Slack we're just like, okay, morning chefs. You know, like, and it's definitely kind of that, hey man, like, before I finish a sentence, like, you know what I'm gonna say next. You know, and it's that, you know, in our company we just call it hip to hip. You know. Have you ever seen the show that's on the Apple show with Momoa in it? See?
Not yet.
You know, okay. Yeah. So in that world, you know, the premise of that world is that it's, you know, post-apocalyptic. It's like 1,000 years after or whatever, and then it's like some disease happened, so the whole world is blind. So having sight is considered evil, and everyone's blind. So the normal is blind. And so when you watch, like, I'm a nerd about these shows, and so I was watching behind the scenes, and they studied, they brought in blind people to come in and kind of teach them how to live life if you were blind. But even deeper than that, but imagine the world was blind, you know? And so, and you and I, as we're talking, we can see each other, we look at each other, right? We're like, we can look at each other. It's like, hey, this conversation, it's going deep. We're seeing each other. In that world, in the TV show See on Apple, when they are closely talking to each other, they literally sit hip to hip. So you and I would be sitting, and your hip would be on my side, and sometimes they would even put their heads together to know that I'm right here when you're talking to me. to know that, you know, we're having a conversation,
Yeah.
but we're literally, because imagine you don't have sight. So what the next thing is, you have touch. So that gave me this idea to talk to our chefs in the way of like, let's be hip to hip in this.
Yeah.
Like that's how close we are. We're hip to hip.
Yeah.
That it is not us going, heard chef, yes chef, you know, to each other, but actually being hip to hip, going, okay, like we are right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, when you're talking about your DP, I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, hip to hip.
Yeah.
You know, when you're like, this is what I want to see. This is how the next scene is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he takes it and he goes, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. On our production, our director and our DP are just, I mean, it's like Hansi goes out and he's like, okay, I got it. I know where I'm going to do. I know how the scene I'm going to set up. I know what the B-roll I'm going to go. So Hansi's also an A-cam guy. So he goes out there and he's just going at it.
Yeah.
And then our director can, you know, Hayden, he can do his own thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's so much more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because, you know, on any set, like time is money.
It is.
Time is money. And especially when people are union workers, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, overtime costs a lot of money.
Yes.
And when you're on a budget, it's like, shoot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's why you see a lot of these production where it's like, oh yeah, we went over budget, so we're gonna need to raise another 100,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes when you're on a small budget, you don't have that luxury, and so having a great DP is, I mean, a cinematographer, DP, whatever.
Yeah.
Having that is exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And so because it's like sometimes you got one shot at this. Sometimes we have 15 minutes to get this next scene in.
Yeah.
And you got one shot at it. You
Yeah.
know, and so
Yeah.
yeah, man, I understand how. And it just like, I just want our listeners to understand that,
Yeah.
like these aren't just like little titles and names, but these like, no. And this way, if you look at great movies that we watch, that is like, whoa, it's like the director. You think of you think of like a Nolan, you think of Spielberg, you think of all these, you know, all these great directors. They take their DP with them
Yes.
on projects.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's like. And it's almost like the production company. It's like, okay, like, you know, we cast. You're the director, and the director goes, great. I already have the 4 people I'm going to have, you know, to finish up. You know, DP, first assistant, da 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 da.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and because it's like I've worked with these people, I've trusted these people,
Yeah.
and we've made great, you know, movies, great stories together.
Yeah.
You know?
You're right. Some of the best teams, kitchens, film sets,
Yeah.
or otherwise, is to the point where there's no talking.
Yeah.
Like, I already know what you're gonna do, so please just go do it to the best of your ability. And you're right that we started reaching levels like that. And like, for example, so Kurt is a SAG actor. Okay, so we were a SAG
SAG stands
production,
for
the Screen Actors Guild. It is the union that union actors are a member of, and their SAG is one of the people who had one of the strikes last year, right? And so we were a SAG production because of Kurt, and we had one minor actor, our boy. And so
And there are all these rules too.
a lot of rules. I don't remember them specifically, but it was like the kid can only be on set for X number of hours. Of those hours, he can actually be working in front of camera for Y number of hours.
So that's why, you know, a lot of times if you're twins,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
They
Mary
can't-
Kate and Ashley.
Yeah, Mary Kate and Ashley.
Yeah.
What are the
Yeah.
kids from the Sweet Life of
Yeah.
Zach and
Yeah.
Cody or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why twins are the best.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you can like tag in.
Yep.
Yep. I get
That's
it.
exactly right. And so one of my
crazy,
favorite,
dude?
it's very crazy. And like, so there's this one shot in the movie where our boy is at the fish tank.
Yeah.
The shot is like less than 2 seconds.
Yep.
He's like looking at the fish eating, and he turns around, and that's the whole shot.
Yeah.
But it was in a very important shot. And I remember, I think we had like literally like 20 minutes left with the kid. And we couldn't figure out how to light up the
Lighting. It's always lighting, bro.
because we were expecting on using the built-in light in the fish tank. But when we got there, like, we didn't have time to do screen tests and all
you
the
didn't do
camera
scout.
tests and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It was like, it's way too dark, and we had to do an emergency fix just like that, to the point where my assistant directors came up to me and were like, we need to realistically find a different solution, or we're going to have to cut this. And it's when you hear that, it's like let's go. And we ended up getting it. And but yeah, and the thing is, you're right, because you know, to me, the goal that we set with Wokman, I'm going to win the Oscar for best live action short film.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to.
Yeah.
But I've seen the last 4 or 5 of them, right? I seek out Oscar winning shorts because it's like, I want and need to produce something that's somewhat relative to what is going on over there. And so that's what I told all my department heads is like, here's a list of movies that I need you to watch that I personally curated. And it's like, these are the goals that I personally am aiming for. And I would really like for you to mold your goals while working alongside me to help me get here. And in addition to that, dude, I think we interviewed / had them read 8 or 9 adult Chinese restaurant kids were my creative consultants, bro. They all read it before we even turn on a camera, right? And so finding these people and eating with them and talking with them and listening to their lives growing up in a restaurant, that was a real special ingredient in my movie that, I think really helped that magic come along. But yeah, dude, there's a lot of unknown stuff, like you said, that happens that they don't make Final Cut and they don't make social media. And sometimes they only pop up in little conversations like this.
Dude, so this film, 8 years in the making, started in your brain 8 years ago. Yeah. You get to see it come to fruition. You get to see it at all these film fests, that's, taking you guys in, which is amazing. Let me ask something. I've been asking this for some of the guests, but let's just say 10 years, 12 years. Let's go back. If you can go back 10 years, 12 years and talk to Jeremy, what would you tell Jeremy 10, 12 years ago? What would you say to him?
You need to save some of the attention and love and effort that I give to other people. I deserve to keep some of that for myself. My kindness and willingness to be a good X, Y, or Z, dude, that didn't matter when folks were getting jobs across the country, when they were off doing their own amazing things, right? And it's like, I was just so scared of everything, you know what I'm saying? Like 10 years ago. And 10 years ago means I was 25. At 25, that's when I decided to go back to college. That is crazy. I never thought about that. It's 10 years ago. I was just so afraid of the world. I was afraid of, like, every decision I would make was just wrong. And that's the thing is I don't think I heard enough adults say that it's okay to screw up. And because, I mean, dude, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think you and I have gotten where we are because of the screw ups that we've had along the way, you know?
For sure.
And sometimes those screw ups are just as important as the wins. And so I think I would ask that version of Jeremy to please consider himself more and to believe in himself more, and to not wait so long to bet on himself.
I always tell young kids that. Just save it. Save all those things like a little piggy bank. And then one day you're going to have to go break the bank and go take all that equity that you've saved from people that have cared about you, people that have given up so much, their sacrifices for you. It's like a little equity, little coins. One day you're going to have to break that. You got to go out there and you got to bet it on yourself. Because I think that people will always believe in you. I think that mom and dads, family, friends will always believe in you. But the risk then comes for you. I know my family. I know my friends and family love me. They love me. They'll be behind me. I know my brother will always say, hey, you can always stay with us if everything fails. I know my mom and dad will always take me back no matter what happens. I know that. But at the end of the day, you were the person. You were the person that asked to go take that risk. And I think that's such a reflection of how we grew up, you know, our people, our parents, our family, our story, you know, right?
Yeah.
That it's super interesting to me that when people talk about the Hmong people, and when people talk to me about Hmong people that are non-Hmong, they're always like, your people are so determined. You know, your people they work so hard. And, you know, some people can look at that as kind of like, well, that's kind of like a positive racist kind of mentality or whatever. But I see it as I think that we've shown where we come from. You know, that there is that work ethic. And sometimes when I use that word, people are like, well, is that like a negative thing? It's like a negative, positive thing or whatever it's called. You know, and I'm just like, nah, man. Like, I know where I get that from.
Yeah.
I know who I represent, you know?
Yeah.
When you're busting out 16-hour days to know that you can go to bed and sleep 6 hours to come back to do a brunch service or whatever, you know? Like, I know where I get that from.
Bro.
You know?
Bro. Yeah. Like, you know, I've told you, I've watched pretty much everything you've appeared on, bro.
Thanks, bro.
And the way you talk about your old man, dude, the thing I remember about you the most is this specific quote when you said, and I forget where you were, but you said you feel the most like your dad when you're after a long day of work, when your hands are hurting, your feet are hurting. It's like, yo, like, why wouldn't I want to be like my old man? Dude? And like, that's all my old man knows how to do is work hard. You know, he's been an electrician for like 40 years. I'm watching him get smaller and grayer, and I have never been more motivated. My mom is a nurse. She's worked overnight for like the past 25 years, man. And like, I mean, our parents are huge factors of why you and I do what we do. And so for me, so we just had Wokman, we just had our cast and crew screening a few weeks ago at the historic Terra Theater in Atlanta. It's one of the oldest and most prestigious movie theaters in the Southeast. It's the home of independent cinema in Atlanta. And we had our screening there and invited the family. And that was the very first time they saw it, right? And like, one of my biggest flexes as a filmmaker is my niece and nephew, like, the very first time they ever went to a movie theater was to watch Uncle Jeremy's movie.
That's awesome, dude.
And like, when my Hmong parents, like, when they look and analyze what I'm doing, it's like, you're doing all that and you make how much? It's like, you know, it's like it don't make sense.
It's an evaluation of, well, all these other people that make movies make a lot of money, like, so your movies must not be that good if you're not making that much money. Do you know what I'm saying? And I get it, because but I think what it is it's easy for us to pass that off as kind of like, oh man, screw this, mom and dad doesn't understand. I think that it's like they have no comprehension in their head to do that. Like, do you know? And that's not a negative thing.
I
you
get
know what I'm saying?
I get you.
But they're just.
I get you.
That's just not something in their head that's not in the world or in the realm, you know, that they think about, you know?
Right. And that is exactly why the verbal explanations could only take us so far. It's also another reason why I intentionally did not let any of them see it until that night. We had over 150 people in that place, hand selected. And they came for me. And I remember, so like, the movie theater, the price you pay depends on the day and the time of day, right? And so our options were Sunday night or Thursday night. And my mom is a nurse. She works overnight from Sunday to Wednesday. And like 2 months for the event, when we're doing the original planning, I was like, let's do a Sunday night. It'll be easier for everybody. And I just had this like assumption, like, if I give mom enough notice, she can take the day off. But then as we get closer, I'm starting to realize, like, yo, that's kind of tough. And so I asked my mom, mind you, we had already set it for Sunday night. And I asked my mom, I'm like, what night would work better for you? And she goes, Thursday night. And I'm like, okay. I didn't tell her We changed the whole thing for my mom, right? And so the weekend before the screening, we were eating lunch at my mom's house. Yeah. And my mom goes, you know, since you picked a weeknight, it may just be me and your dad. And I was already like getting ready to kind of do my spiel. But then my little sister was like, and my sister-in-law were like, hey, do not speak for us. We are all going. And the whole fam came, right? And when the credits hit, dude, and that thunderous applause hit, I think they got it a little bit more. And I mean, I know they felt it, and and we haven't talked about it at all, but something changed.
Dude, I think that's what being Hmong is sometimes, because like when you do something and like your parents, they might not say anything, but like we can rest in our hearts, like inside, like, yeah, they get it.
Yeah, I don't need to hear anything.
Yeah, and it's I mean, okay. I've had so many of those moments where it feels like me godparents, it would be like blasted out everywhere, you know what I mean, on their social media, like, this is my kid, this is my kid. Yeah. But I think that, oh man, I'm gonna get super emotional right now, but it's so silly, but like, one of my favorite movies that makes me cry today is Hercules, the cartoon. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And Phil, you know, he's Danny DeVito's character. He's like the Minotaur, I think. Or no, I forget what he is. He's I don't know. He's the coach. Yeah. He's the hero coach, right? He coaches heroes. And what does Phil say? Phil goes, I just want one day for some, like, you know, whoever I train to be in the stars, and I want everyone to look and say, hey, that's Phil's boy. And like that always resonated in me, because it's like, man, I can screw up, I can do whatever, but just one day I want people to see my name on some article somewhere, on TV screen somewhere, and not think, because I don't give a turd about that part. Yeah. But being like, yeah, we know his parents. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, we know his dad. Absolutely. Like, he's a good man. We know his mom. Yeah. She's a great woman. Yeah. You know, and that they know their names of your mom and dad. Yeah. And say, hey, that's their boy. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And it's why, like, it's cheesy, but like every time I see that scene, or every time that scene comes up somewhere, I tear up, because I was like, that's all I want, dude. Like, that's all I all of this awards, all that stuff, that's tight. That's nothing compared to the community. And they look and they see that Vang name, and they associate it with, we know his parents. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
I could not relate to that more, dude. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, I'm not going to talk about too much about the stuff that you and I have been kind of quietly collaborating on, but like the conversations that we have about, because like, dude, I get it. You are such an inspiration to me. Like,
thanks, man.
Like, when it comes to like, because not only do like we kind of look the same, but it's like, you know, we are respectively.
We should have you here around more. So
we're doing these.
People always
things.
think Timmy looks like me.
Yeah. We're doing things that are, I mean, truly, they're not just for us. And like,
yeah, that's just the low hanging fruit, bro. Yeah. Like, if we do it just for us, I honestly, I think we agree on this. Yeah. It's just low hanging fruit. That's the simple shiz, you know?
Exactly.
You know, but there has to be something deeper.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, we've talked so many times about our parents growing older, and like, how are we going to respond to that? And like, I'm excited knowing that like, I'm not going to do it alone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, we have this new generation of Hmong people who we're seeking each other out, because we realize that like what you've told me so many times, the future of Hmong people do not rest on a pair of shoulders. It actually rests on an entire community of shoulders. And hearing that from you, and like hearing your community efforts, even though you have like this stuff, it is helping me figure out what direction I want to go in, right? And so, we're just barely getting started as well, you and I. We both have a huge 2024 coming up, and I'm excited to see how we continue to honor our parents as we move forward.
Yeah, and then do it together.
And then do it together.
Absolutely. Which is like,
yeah,
our Easter egg we're gonna drop.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Hey man, you and I, man, I think that we've done this before. We could just chat for days.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the listeners can listen for days.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I want you to promote Wokman. Like where. What are some screenings they can go see? When are the screenings?
Yeah.
How they follow you guys on social media?
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And so Wokman, Wokman, easily findable on all socials. And I'm tagged alongside it, so you can find me there as well. I think I told you right before we started filming, I just learned that Wokman made it into the Atlanta Film Festival. Which is, it's just so
huge,
special.
Yep.
So special for me.
Being like your hometown.
My hometown. It's an Academy Award qualifying festival. And by the time this gets released, that'll be released publicly. And so that's happening. And then we're also got fingers crossed because Minneapolis St. Paul Film Festival will be letting us know within the next month if we get in. And if we get in, I'll be coming back to Minneapolis for a few days in April. So hopefully that happens. But yeah. And so other than that, we're just kind of waiting to hear back from some film festivals and hopefully have some more screenings around the country. And if you follow us on socials, you'll be able to keep up with where we are. And yeah, man.
Well, dude, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for spending the day with us.
Absolutely.
Literally just the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And it's a big trek for you to, fly out in your private jet, sponsored by Spirit Airlines.
Any day, bro.
Yeah.
Any day.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.